Greetings, sailors, and welcome back to UA Dreadnoughts. And it is patch 1.08. So this is actually a hotfix. The main patch was 1.06, and I'm really hoping there's not any more hotfix patches after this one, because 1.08 had a note saying that you should probably start a new campaign because otherwise it might break previous ones. So I'm glad I waited at least a little bit. The main big thing of 1.06 is, as it says here, continuous campaign. So you can basically go straight through from 1890 up until an end date of 1950. That's providing, of course, that you don't meet one of the fail conditions. And I think they've started to properly implement the kind of war preparations system, whereby not only will you get portions of a defeated enemy's fleet, but you'll also potentially be able to take over some of their territory as well. Now, there's also some other things. I haven't actually even really done a test campaign with this, so I'm kind of going into this slightly blind. I have done some of the Naval Academy missions just to play around with at least some of the new design features. And some of the major ones, as it says here, are that the Citadel functionality has changed, so you can do Nelson-style ships and actually get the benefit of a kind of shortened Citadel. And you also, I think, have some more leeways to where you place funnels and things in terms of affecting the center of the center of mass of the ship and where the engines are. You can't quite do the sort of trunked funnels that you had on some real life designs. I think that was actually added in a previous patch, but I think they've further refined it. As it says here, the engine room section detailing. But yeah, being able to put in trunked funneling would be nice, but I'm not sure how exactly they would do that with their current way of doing things, where it's basically just all predefined parts. You would need some trunked funneling predefined parts, basically. And I don't know how you would then do that as a, like, what kind of benefit that would give in terms of the ship stats. But yeah. The other big thing is intermediate gun calibers. So you can not only change the size of your guns. So if you've got 14-inch guns, you can have up to 14.9-inch guns. But you can also alter the length of the barrel as well, which will obviously affect the characteristics. So you can have basically really long barrels, which will, I think, give better accuracy and a higher muzzle velocity, but also will give the shells a very flat arc. Whereas if you go for shorter barrels, you can go for potentially greater deck penetration and kind of more looping arcs. And I suppose if you coupled that with like heavier shells, for instance, you might actually be able to go for a kind of more US style kind of heavy AP approach and hopefully go for all the deck pens. So that could be interesting. That adds some more kind of possibilities in terms of what we want to do. I suppose a lot of it's still in the hands of the player, though. I mean, like, you can have a whole bunch of ships that are designed to wildly different philosophies, or you can, as a player, try and go for a more unified philosophy. And there's still nothing like logistics to worry about. So you're never going to be in the position that real life Germany was in with inferior quality coal, for instance, or into the Second World War era, Italy and Germany particularly having problems with having enough fuel, and that was especially a problem for Italy. And of course, you don't have to worry about the logistics of having 50 billion different kinds of calibers in play. And I've noticed the AI certainly has gone a bit hog wild with designing ships, at least for the Naval Academy scenarios, where you'll have like 3 or 4 different ships, and not one of them will be the same, and they all have different gun calibers. So again, that's in the hands of the player if you want to try and stick with some uniform calibers to mimic the difficulties that you would have, or respect the difficulties you would have in real life of trying to supply. I mean, let's give an example of, like 4-inch guns and 4.1 and 4.2 and 4.3 and 4.4 and 4.5. You could literally have all different, sub-caliber 4-inch guns on your ship, but that would be a logistical nightmare of having all those different sizes of ammunition, and actually then having the industrial capacity to do all that. So none of that is in the game. I don't know if they'll ever bother with that. There's not really any kind of like industrial side to this. It's not like Hearts of Iron, where you have to not only have the industry, albeit in a rather abstracted form, the industrial capacity to actually kind of supply your war machine, but also then you have to design the ships as well. Although, having said that, Hearts of Iron doesn't, like, it's not that granular. It doesn't make you build naval ammunition factories or anything like that. It's kind of very abstract on the naval side of things, actually. In terms of your land forces, it makes you produce different kinds of things, but in terms of your navies, it really is just build the ships and have sufficient fuel for your ships, and that's about it. Anyway, that's enough blather. I haven't even clicked on new campaign yet. I've just been wittering away. So I think I've decided I'm going to give Italy a go. One of the big changes is that there aren't these big fixed alliances in place at the start of the game, but I think you can end up, if you have good enough relations with other nations, you can end up creating these sort of perma-alliances. I don't know if there's any way to break them once you've done that, but I mean, potentially you could, like as Britain, for instance, you could try and build up a strong enough navy that you can just take on everybody all at once, which I'm not sure why you would try and do that, but I'm sure if you were trying to give yourself a particular challenge, that's something that you could do. But yeah, it also breaks things up a bit, makes things a bit more interesting, and I think they have rebalanced some of the economics as well in terms of maintenance costs and things. So I don't know if it's quite as easy to build up a big fleet. Like even with the supposedly harder to play nations of Austria, Hungary, and Italy, which are kind of the more minor powers available on the campaign map, it still wasn't that hard to build up a pretty decent sized fleet, so long as you weren't being completely terrible about actually protecting your trade ships sufficiently. Yeah, I think I will actually. I haven't decided whether I want to go with the pre-generated fleet or whether I want to create my own fleet, but I think there's an extra challenge in working with a pre-generated fleet. Like, it's almost like you're coming in and taking over the reins of heading the National Navy. Although I don't know if it would then be entirely realistic for someone to stay in that post for 60 years, potentially from 1819 to 1950. But it's well within the realms of a single human lifespan. It's just I can't imagine somebody even remotely like getting to the point where you'd have to become basically the head of a navy at an absurdly young age to then realistically have another 60 years. But anyway, I think we'll go with that then. We will go with auto-generated, and I might actually try AI random as well, just to see what that's like, because I've not really tried that before. We also have difficulty options to play with, but we'll stick with normal, and we'll see how we do. Now, there might be a little bit of a delay while it builds fleets and things. This is always a slightly slow part of the game, is actually starting things up, because it's got to generate all the designs for all the navies. And so, yeah, I think I might have to sit and wait for a few minutes. But obviously, with the magic of editing, that won't really be an issue for everybody watching. So, here we are. It is January 1890. And I guess we'll see what we've got. It has occurred to me that France, in particular, gets the position of having both Atlantic and Mediterranean ports, but also a couple of North African ports. I don't know why they've cut the map off there exactly, because it would make sense for there to be, like, if it was just a bit further down, you'd have obviously Alexandria, but you'd have one or two Italian ports as well. So yeah, I don't really know why they haven't. In fact, aren't we also missing? Wasn't this all Spanish at this point? Shouldn't there be some Spanish ports here as well? Not that Spain is currently a playable nation. All the ones with faded out flags are just kind of placeholders. So yeah, maybe they'll expand at some point. I mean, the campaigns are at a point where it's starting to feel more like a fully fleshed out game, but it's still fairly limited in scope. It's still entirely just a European theatre, and the map isn't even all that big. I mean, we've got all that cut off. We don't even have all of where Russia might have ports. I was also vaguely wondering if we would ever get kind of minor nations added in the same way that games like the Total War series do it, where they're not really playable by human players, but they do still have some presence on the map. So, like, the Netherlands or Greece or the Ottomans. I mean, I do wonder if they'll even add the Ottomans in as a naval power at some point. They would be potentially even more difficult than the Austro-Hungarian Empire in terms of their constraints, but the bigger coastline, but probably an even smaller budget to work with. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, let's have a look, see what we've got, and yeah, what kind of fleet we have. Now we do have no capital ships at all, apparently. I mean, well, we have heavy cruisers, but nothing bigger than a heavy cruiser, apparently. That's interesting. Heavy cruisers, light cruisers, torpedo boats. And a lot of that is the light stuff. So 101 ships on the face of it is not bad. But yeah, our shipyard size is pretty small overall. And yeah, we have absolutely no capital ships whatsoever. What are our finances like? Plus 8 million, which is not too bad, but that is with nothing like... We'll bump up our budgets a little bit. Set that to say 70%, but we're going to want to try and get some battleships on the go as well, so we don't want to go too nuts. Set that to 40%, and that can remain there at the moment. One big difference is that we're starting off in peacetime, so we don't have to immediately worry about like losing transports or anything like that. Who will we be friendly with? I don't know if there's anything we can actively do to improve or worsen relations. I think it might just be like event pop-ups. So yeah, France and Britain are relatively friendly. We have a very slightly positive relation with them. Germany and Austria-Hungary are no, rather Italy and Austria-Hungary are friendly with Germany. So they've kind of weighted it the same way as it was last time. But we actually have slightly positive relations with both Britain and France, and then much better relations with those two. So we're in a position of, actually, we don't have negative relations with anybody. which is kind of interesting. Now, what is the maximum size of anything we can build at the moment? Do we even... I mean, we should have a battleship hull available, but it won't be a very good one. What do we want to go for? We're not going to have to worry about range terribly much. I think we're going to start off with a fairly coastal defensive fleet, but we'll see. We'll see where this takes us. We're quite close on armor quality, and both armor and armor forging as well. So let's set those two priorities there. We've got some other things that are fairly close, but we won't bother with just yet. Still a bunch of stuff marked as work in progress as well. So mines, for instance, and being able to lay minefields at some point would presumably influence how things might work out on the campaign map. There's a lot of times that I kind of find myself thinking of that such and such a thing from Hearts of Iron would be nice, but at a certain point I kind of have to realise that as fun as it would be to have a naval-only kind of Hearts of Iron style game, I don't think this is ever going to be that. I don't think it's going to be that kind of a game in terms of like logistics and supply and that detailed level of research. So yeah, I don't want to get too much in my own head about what I want this game to be as opposed to what it actually is going to be. Now, we do have a battleship design, but we just haven't got any built. But that does mean I can potentially either change that design or make my own design. I think that it's given me a 17,000 ton design. I wonder if that's why it hasn't given me any, because we've only got a maximum of 12,000 tons like dockyard capacity, maximum dockyard capacity. So it's finances we want, isn't it? So we might actually need to what's that going to cost me in total? Right, our overall naval funds are not that high. I mean, we've got positive balance, but it's also not going up in particularly neat increments, which is sort of annoying. I guess we're going to just kind of have to do this in a little bits because we don't have huge amounts of cash going. Let's see if we can build some baby battleship, because obviously we can't actually build any of these because shipyard limits. So new design. We'll also have a look at the existing designs as well, see what they are like. So that's automatically capped out. I wonder if that's a bug, if that's an oversight where it can auto-design a ship for you that exceeds your actual dockyard capacity, because in real life, I don't know if you would do that. And the fact that it's then started us without any battleships whatsoever because it physically can't build any. So I don't know. That does feel like something that will probably be patched. I don't think that's intentional behaviour. So we can have up to a maximum of 12,000, which it doesn't snap, unfortunately, to the maximum displacement range. We can drop that down, see if we can get up to 19 knots. Quarters, put that at standard. We might tweak those, but if we do, it'll be to try and increase the stability of the platform. We'll leave it at 0 for now. Oh, we haven't actually put any guns. We don't even know what capital guns we've got. Citadel, everything's going to be super basic. Single pole bottom, compound armor. Yeah, we have very little in the way of tech at the moment. So, 5,000 kilometers range. We might even be able to put that down to kind of minimum range, because this is basically just going to be 4,000 kilometers would still cover a pretty decent amount of the med. So, yeah, limited options. And I don't know if this is even really an Italian Dreadnought hull. I think this is... Is this styled after a German ship? I can't remember. Or it might be one of the more generic ones. There are a lot of the hulls in the game that are based on specific ships. But I think they've got some generic hulls in there as well. So there might be times and places like... I don't know. China, for example, doesn't exactly have a long history of battleship design, so I suspect there might end up being some very sort of generic / made up ones in there at the point where we either have a world map or maybe just a separate Pacific map. I don't know if they're planning to do an entire world map. It would certainly make sort of range and logistics a lot more complicated. And you would have to actually think about maximum ranges, because there were, like Russia, for instance, trying to move its fleets between Baltic, the Black Sea, or the Pacific was always an absolute logistical nightmare for them. And yeah, there's that one particularly infamous story of, what was it, the Second Pacific Squadron or something like that? They moved them from the Baltic to tried to get them to the Pacific, and it was just an absolute... yeah, it didn't go well. So let's see what we can get away with. That is almost the same engine efficiency as that. I don't think we're... no, I mean... Are we going to have room for... Yeah, I think 2 small funnels is going to be better than... That's so we can fit. No, okay, we're going to have to go with 2 small funnels, which is not the most efficient configuration, but also gives us the best engine efficiency. Efficiency in terms of, you know, weight and smoke interference is what I meant there. Because that, you know, single funnel would give 17.5, but 2 of them together gives 30. So stuff like that. So it's going to degrade our accuracy, but... with a single big funnel, it's going to be unacceptably low. We could actually reduce our speed a bit, and that actually bumps that up to 80%. I don't really want to go slower than 18 knots. And 18 knots would have been relatively fast for this era anyway. So, centerline guns, main guns, we have up to 12-inch guns. In terms of base accuracy, I think the 12s are actually the best. And then, of course, we can tweak them. That bounces us pretty well, in fact. Right. We're actually decreasing our displacement, and that will increase the... But I don't think we can make the ship too skinny, otherwise the bridge is not physically going to fit on. Sadly. There's no... Like, these are the first dynamic elements they've introduced. There are no dynamic anythings to parts other than the beam draft. Well, displacement has always been a dynamic element in that it goes through bands of different hull sizes. It doesn't kind of smoothly increase. It kind of jumps. It would be nice if that was an option where you could actually like increase or decrease the length, or see the length increase and decrease sort of independently of it just kind of jumping by sections instead of going in a more smooth manner. I didn't put that very well, but anyway. So, but yeah, beam draft and of course now the guns themselves are somewhat dynamic. So it makes me wonder if we'll get further dynamic elements added in later. So, what do I want to do? Well, we can also actually have, depending on what manner of citadel you have, so we can have a maximum of 1.6 inches. So that's fine. So we can increase the diameter all the way up to 12.9. Of course, 12.9 are going to give more damage, but that's actually decreasing the ability of the turret to turn, because it's making the turret physically larger. So we can get up to what? 12.7. It would be nice if you could. Does it say somewhere? I've just missed it, because there are places on this list where it will tell you, as you change it, it'll dynamically change and show you what the size of the guns are. But it would be nice if it also would tell you things like how it's affecting your rate of fire, how it is affecting your I presume the size of the shells affects the things like fire chance and things going kaboom, or is that purely just by the kind of propellant and charge that you're using? So yeah, but bigger guns mean they do influence the reload rate, and the muzzle velocity is more to do with the length of the barrels, I think. But obviously, physically bigger shells mean more damage as well. I think we will stick with. Let's stick with. Oh, that's the wrong button. Let's stick with 12-inch guns, but maybe let's play with the length a bit, so we can actually put it all the way up to its max. We'll be able to see that we get much better range. Obviously, this is going to affect the ballistics, but it doesn't really there's no indication of how this is going to affect the ballistics beyond the muzzle velocity. So this is improve the muzzle velocity, which is going to give us better penetration. I think so. I think it actually has that gone up. HEAP penetration. So they should be better at penetrating belt armor. And I think for the shorter ranges of these earlier guns, that's probably more useful. Yeah, if I decrease that, you can actually make the barrels quite short as well. Yeah, that went from, what was it, 38% to... and that's significantly decreased our range as well. That's kind of down to cruiser ranges. But, yeah. We do have enhanced reloading available. You would think... I mean, we're at the minimum, at 12 inches. I'm not sure why the reload time is still quite so high. But anyway, yeah, we won't do that. We'll... I think we'll... Should we just max it out? I mean... It gives us by far the best range. It obviously is increasing the weight of the, heavier barrels means it's increasing the weight of the guns overall, but we do have plenty to play around with. So, some secondary guns. I don't particularly like this hull in terms of its secondary gun layout. But what we can do is go with, say, 4-inch guns, which will be fairly fast firing. This is going to affect the thing a bit overall. And the offset a bit is what I meant. But we can also do the exact same for the secondary guns, so we can actually increase their range by increasing the barrel length, and we could potentially increase the thing as well, the diameter. So we could have, say, 4.5-inch guns. But here's where you, as the player, have to decide if you're going to role play it a bit and like use 4.5-inch guns as a kind of standard caliber, for instance, or if you're going to go with like 4.9-inch guns. But if we do that, well, actually the ship jumps up to being overweight. So yeah, we might just keep those as 4-inch. How much difference does the barrel make? Not as nearly as much as the caliber. I mean, I guess that's one option you now have to like really potentially save weight. Is actually you could trim barrel length if you are otherwise struggling. Is there any place on the superstructure? Put some 2-inch guns on the back there, which will. Can we do anything bigger than 2-inch guns? They're not a great arc overall. Can 3-inch guns go there? Why does it put them there? Right, we can have some 3-inch guns there, and then 2-inch barrels on that top thing there. We can also... No, we can't put any at the front. So again, we can adjust those for range, and we only have a couple of these each, so this isn't going to affect our weight that much. Don't have to. That actually seems like quite a lot of armor for. I suppose it's casemate armor. But yeah, let's put that down to 8 inches. That's fine. Don't know if we have to worry too much about top turret armor. There's now a separate barbette armor, so you're not just relying on the barbette option up here. You can actually, physically increase the amount of armor as well. But I think this still. Like that then governs how likely the barbette is to be penetrated, but this governs the kind of, I guess, the internals, as it were, in terms of how things are divided up and designed to try and prevent flash fires from happening. So you can't just crank up the raw armor and have. In fact, if you take away that, will it? No, it still gives the main turret barbette, but I mean that's also the main turret barbette. You've also like this is the overall chance of these things happening, so it's also affecting your secondary guns as well. Right, so we want increased AP. I don't know if there's any real reason to have, like, you could go for all AP secondaries. I don't know if there's any real advantage to that. We don't have any shell types available. Is there anything else we could really do here? I mean, some torpedo tubes is about the only thing. Some side-mounted torp tubes. We could... maybe... Now, if we set that further back, it starts to affect. But that's okay. There we go. So pitch 90%, 19% even, roll 13%. The only last thing we could do is maybe fiddle around with shells, but I think we'll leave them at standard. And I think we'll leave that at standard as well. As the that's not what I wanted. The current propellant / bursting charge we're using don't have any particular penalty to the chance of it going kaboom. unexpectedly. So you might be able to offset that a bit by fiddling with your either amount of shells or the rest of it. Right, so armor is the last thing left, I suppose. It's all compound armor, so it's not particularly super effective. I'll probably get that up to 14 inches. Maybe get some main deck armor on. We might leave a little bit of weight left over. I mean, what we can even do, given that we have dragged these down, is that gives us, like, we can drag the displacement slider a bit. And that actually gives us, well, that's what I was awkwardly trying to say before, is that gives us the longer hull form. But that has also dramatically changed the weight offset. Oh no! See, that's the problem when you put type in the weight like that. It's the unmodified weight. So now we're just going to have to eyeball it on the slider. Right. So that actually does give us the opportunity. I didn't even think of doing that earlier, which yeah. Can we get a medium one in there? So that gives us slightly worse smoke interference, but also better engine efficiency. And I just can we put the rest of those in? So that still gives a little bit of weight to work with, to potentially add, like, you know, better bridge on or something like that. But, you know, bear in mind that there are things later on as well that will save weight. So you could, for instance, well, the big one would be armor type, but also things like engines can be swapped around. I mean, obviously those are then fairly lengthy refits, but yeah. One thing it doesn't do automatically, which you kind of have to do as a player, is obviously as your armor types get more effective, it changes various modifiers in terms of, like, the I think there is literally like an armor effectiveness percentage somewhere. At the moment it'll be like minus, it'll be like 50% or 70% or something, and it's only when you get to corrupt 1 that it gets to like 100%. So but like increasing the armor effectiveness means that, you know, in theory, to get the same overall protection, you could then, like, decrease the amount of actual armor that you have, or I mean, even saving or having the same main belt thickness, you can sort of get overall better protection if you increase the armor. So you've got choices. You can kind of keep roughly the same level of protection, or just get better overall protection. So there is potential later on to refit this design a bit. We do have more of a 4 weight offset than I would like, though. Could we, like, increase the after deck a little bit? Maybe decrease the fore belt a tiny bit. I mean, it's only let's say 4.8, 3.4%. I think that's entirely acceptable. So that is a 7 million design, reasonably well armored, 12-inch guns, which are the biggest we have available at the moment, and we have hopefully increased their accuracy. We've certainly increased their penetration and their range. So let's save that design. So now we have a usable battleship design. Wow, it's been so long. I've been going for like 40 minutes, 42 minutes already, and haven't even, like, advanced at all. So this is only slightly cheaper than this design. But yeah, it is a bit cheaper, less maintenance, actually slightly faster. Bit less armor than it had come up with for that one. So yeah, we're going to take a look at the other designs we have. So our fleet of everything else it's given us. So it probably will have done lots of wonky intermediate calibers in terms of guns. So we have 4.2, 3.4 guns. At least it's kind of consistent. And they are all actually slightly different in terms of like barrel length. So that's fine. Probably doesn't have. I mean, 3.7 inches of armor, of belt armor, is probably pretty decent for a cruiser of this period. 21 knots, only standard bulkheads, which is not great. Spacious quarters, also something that I don't tend to do very often. Which it just means the amount of spare crew you're carrying, basically. But if it gets to the point where running out of crew matters that much, that yeah, things are probably going badly enough anyway that you're screwed for other reasons like excessive amounts of fire. Torpedo boats have 2 tubes. What kind of ammo have they got? 15-inch. Okay, so they'll have 1 reload each. So that'll be 4 torpedoes overall. We also have 4.1, 2.2-inch guns. Okay, they almost kind of look like this style of bow almost reminds me of the fishing trawlers we have based out of here. That, you know, just fishing trawler designs generally, where it's that big kind of enclosed bow area. Almost. I'll try and find a picture to stick on screen. I don't know what that's called particularly. Like, it's probably got some specific name, but yeah. Anyway, so decent speed, probably a bit more range than it needs to have, and then our capital unit, 22 knots. Like the actual capital units that we do have built. Again, only standard bulkheads, spacious quarters, 4.9-inch belt, and we have 7.2-inch and 1.6-inch guns, and also a mixed bag of casemate guns as well. So I might well do refit versions of these. I guess we'll see how they perform first. Right, so we don't have any battleships. We need some battleships, so let us build 500k. Finances. Finances is what we want. Let's go for like 4 battleships on the go. Which is not fantastic, but yeah. Now, can we see what kind of... Well, we can see overall fleet sizes, and we actually have the biggest in terms of numbers, but that's because, of course, it decided to design a battleship for us that physically could not be built, and then filled out the budget that we had with smaller ships. So we have the biggest overall fleet, but we have also no battleships. And I presume that other nations do have battleships. I don't know if we can see in the log there. No, that's all smaller ships. I mean, it'd be funny if it's done that for literally everyone else. No, okay, they do at least have some battleships, but just looking at the port information. There's only one there. It would be interesting if you could... France definitely does. Okay. It'd be interesting if you could, like, designate, like, a primary port for a given area. Because, I mean, for the UK, obviously, it would have been Scapa Flow for the north, and then Portsmouth and Plymouth for the rest of for England basically, and I think France it was is it Le Havre and Toulon would have been the main ones, and then Italy you've got like La Spezia and Taranto, but possibly some of the other imports were quite important as well. And it's probably represented in game by the ones that have the biggest port capacity. But yeah, it'd be interesting if you could like designate primary ports and get some kind of benefit out of that. There's still no way to physically build up ports. The ports are just the ports that you get. And I don't know if there's even any technology that increases port capacities. Like, in theory, I suppose if you somehow had enough money, you could end up with more ships than you actually have port capacity for. I still also would really like the ability to designate home ports, because at the moment your fleets just kind of randomly shuffle around. Like, you can send and consolidate fleets in various areas. So, like, for instance, we have just kind of random bits of fleets all over the place at the moment. But yeah, as ships get damaged, and go back to repair, it seems to just randomly send them to different ports. Like, it doesn't even seem to be go to the closest port to repair. No, sometimes it just goes to some other random port completely, and that then messes things up. So yeah, you kind of have to keep an eye on. It's especially a pain as Germany. You start to wonder why your ports over here are emptying out, and then you look over here and realise all your repairing ships have, for some reason, ended up in Danzig and Pillau, and yeah, they're just kind of sat there because you haven't been paying attention, and there doesn't tend to be much happening in that area overall. So yeah, it's a bit of a pain, really. Anyway, let's advance some turns. There's probably not going to be a lot of action in this particular episode. Okay, fleets affect bilateral relations. I think, I guess doing stuff with your fleets, like sending them around the place, or maybe strengthening fleets in certain areas. I'm not entirely sure how it works, but I think I seem to remember that was in the patch notes somewhere, that what you do with your fleets is one of the things that can have effects on relations. Also, we have pop-ups like this. So, we can, yeah, we can actually have penalty to relations, which actually, I'm guessing when it says -3 unrest, that's going to be a good thing, right? That's going to take our unrest down to nothing. I'm guessing you want unrest to be low. Or we could also lose 15% of our naval funds for only +3 relations with Britain. Now, I think we'll take the relations hit. -10 is fairly hefty. Anyway, armor forging and armor weight -4%, but that only applies to ships that are that start construction after that date, so that doesn't retroactively apply, unfortunately. So we'll drop that, and I guess propulsion, engine weight. So again, that will only apply to ships built after that's researched. Boilers is the closest, but we might want to go for engines. We don't have a date on that yet. Is that going to still be... No, we'll leave that one on there then. We'll just click through some turns. See how we go. So, I guess because we're not really, like, chugging our fleets around, we'll try doing that. That's coming on. That's fine. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see if we can, like, move a fleet into an area. So let's just grab all of those. And we don't have to worry about, like I was saying, it's not like Hearts of Iron, we have to worry about the amount of fuel you have in reserve. We don't have to worry about importing coal. Torpedo sizes have gone up, so we're just kind of going up with everybody. Is there a way to get it to go down? I don't know. So we can have that group. Ah, invade roll, that's new. Okay, alright, so yeah, I think invade and protect are they new as of 1.06? So you can set them to be more defensive and devote more time to protecting your own transports. Invade is kind of confusingly named. That should be more like trade interdiction or something like that. And then sea control increases the radius from which they can interact when based in a port. Increases their activity at sea, therefore increases their power projection at the cost of a much higher ship maintenance cost. Ship set at sea control calls the maximum tension during peacetime. So if I wanted to do that deliberately, it would bump the cost up. But yeah. Right, let's set them back to right. I guess that radius there is kind of like they will interact with stuff within that radius. So let's just send them back to Ancona, I guess. Is there much reason to be moving ships around at the moment? I mean, the AI is just going to be doing it. But in peacetime, I think it's just it's like ships actually being out and about and doing stuff out of port does increase the expenses that you face. So I don't know if there's actually any point to doing that unless you're trying to deliberately tank relations. Press conference, at a press conference, journalists question your combat ability of your fleet. What is your reply? Actually increase our naval budget. Modernizing the fleet. We gain 4 unrest. I'm not sure what unrest does. I think high unrest basically means you get unseated. Crew levels, training level is inadequate. Gain a little bit of prestige. I can sort of bite back at him, which will increase the prestige of the Navy, but of course they control the purse strings. Let's go with that median option, but we might also, I was thinking it's a bit too low. We could actually increase the... although it doesn't really have to be that high. I mean, the crew pool is fine. Set to like 45%. We might bump up the tech budget a bit, but we do also just want to build up a bit of a surplus of cash as well. Because if you get into wartime, that's when you're going to need a surplus of cash. So we do still want some positive balance, but yeah. But yeah, I'm still not 100% clear how crew training affects your actual crew experience. As opposed to also, like, that seems to be its primary thing, but yeah, average training cadet. So we'll see if that goes up over time in terms of what it says the average training level of our crews are. They're asking a significant financial aid for their short-term naval expenditures, which can pay from our own funds. Special trade agreement. I think that sounds like a good deal, although that's a big chunk of our naval funds. But the GDP going up, let's do that. It doesn't affect our prestige, but it does take a huge bite out of our naval funds. But that's going to be good in the long term. Of the like GDP is the primary factor of your funding and your economic growth. So the GDP going up by 1%, and 1% of 6 billion is, you know, it's several millions. Right, so bigger cruisers. And triple expansion steam engines, nice. Okay, so I think now we can start to look at maybe refits and maybe put a internals protection gun layout. It would be nice if you had a little more control over the direction of like if there were specific calibers that you wanted to focus on improving, because at the moment it's just kind of, it's a blind list basically. So at the moment we're researching Mark II 9-inch guns, but you know, it's just kind of doing them. I guess the next one will be Mark II 10-inch guns, but what I thought I wanted to focus the priority on 12-inch guns, because those are the ones I'm actually using. It'd be nice if I could do that. Shells, torp tubes. Let's go for control station, because that's your actual like control towers. There's also range finders. It's fairly important, but yeah. Let's look at doing some refit designs. Now that we have triple expansion engines, we can start running ships through refit as well. But we'll have to do them in dribs and drabs, because obviously, you know, refits eat up cash. Okay, so for the light cruiser, I have fiddled with a couple of things. I've changed the armour from plain iron plate to nickel steel. We've put the triple expansion engine on. I've put the crew quarters down to standard. Weirdly, even though you can't touch the displacement slider, you can play with the beam and draft. Like, that's fundamentally changing the shape of the hull. You would think that would be fixed for a refit, but apparently you can change it, which doesn't make much sense to me. So what was it before? I don't really want to fiddle with that, but it was around minus 10%, so yeah. I've also swapped in slightly better funnels, so I've increased the engine efficiency. The pitch and roll are better. For some reason it was increased ammo, so that was obviously going to increase the chance of flash fires. I've also increased the belt armor a bit. I think the Citadel armor might be tied to the belt armor, so if I... oh, that's weird, it's flashing. But I did increase it a bit, and it then gave me the option of adding more Citadel armor. But it isn't at this point, so I don't know. No, now it is. No, it isn't. 1.5. It's 1.5 the max? I guess 1.5 is the max. Right, anyway. So, yeah, I don't really know. There's a couple of oddities there. That, again, might be an oversight, the fact that you can still play with those sliders, which, you know, will change the overall displacement, which is a bit weird. So hopefully this is a design that's going to be less prone to exploding and is a bit more of an accurate platform. The fact that we have made some weight savings means I could maybe fiddle around with gun calibers a bit. So, I mean, we could actually leave... we could say, okay, we're standardizing at 4.5-inch guns. That does affect that. But yeah, we could also bump that up to 10%. And the 3-inch secondaries are kind of relatively unimportant, but we can actually increase their range by... I don't know why I'm doing individual clicks there. Can we even get that up to full 20%? Yes. Okay. So we'll say we've refitted to our... We'll say we've got a standard 4.5-inch... like that's one of our calibers that we have. So that's overall a better running design. So we'll save that. It's probably a little more expensive. My mouse over. That should have, and I don't know if they've changed the refit system. Does it create a separate? No, it's slightly more expensive, but that's fine. It's got like better armor, better engines, better everything else. So we'll view the. We'll do the same things for the other designs that we have as well. Okay, so I've been poking at this a bit. I think I'm going to have to wait, however, until we get better boiler options, because at the moment the if I click on the refit button, yeah, it's not a great design. It's got horrible engine efficiency, and you would not want to be on board one of these things in any kind of like anything other than flat calm. It would bob up and down like a toy boat. I mean, it is practically a toy boat. It's only 254 tons, but yeah, it's also. I mean, it's like fiddling around with it. You know, single funnel. It's kind of really hard to get this balanced in any way. So we're going to leave that alone, and we're going to go and do the heavy cruiser. So having as well poked at this one, it equally has the problem of really terrible engine efficiency and no way to put on more funnel capacity. So I think again we'll wait to redesign that once we have the ability to change the boilers. But what we can do is go with a fresh template, and I'm going to poke around, see if I can do anything better with a new design. Obviously it's going to be higher displacement, and let's see if we can go for like 21 knots, and see if we can do any better than the one it has given us. Yeah, so there's just no way for me to have any kind of, like, even at the absolute lowest, we're still less than 75%. So unless I want a really dreadfully slow heavy cruiser, I think we'll just hold off on that for now. I mean, doing the trick of taking those as far down as they go, I might be able to stick on the biggest funnel, but yeah, the difference between that, 6.5, it's not a lot. So yeah, either we get a hull that can support more than one funnel, or we get the better the better boilers, because at the moment, yeah, we're just going to have some just like equally terrible ships. So there's not much point in going through the expense of refitting. So what we can do though is we can start refitting some of our light cruisers. That'll be about 500,000, so we'll just do 4 months. That's not bad, considering we're putting in new engines and updating the armor. That is surprisingly okay. So I'll do a few more turns, and I think I'll wrap this video up. There's not been a lot of action, but that's going to be the thing now that there are these long campaigns, that there are going to be potentially long stretches of downtime, essentially. Oh, okay, we're actually starting to have... Is this because I've started building battleships? I wonder. Is it not the movements that govern this, but building new ships? I think it might be building the new battleships. So, yeah, slightly negative relations with France. Hydraulic steering gear, contact mines, which obviously are not in the game. We've only got one thing. Oh, we'll just leave control station as it is for now. I mean, as I've explained previously, you know, you can set up to 3, but it then has, you can see like a hull protection where we have the number. The more priorities you set, it kind of drags everything else down a bit kind of thing. So I've been using the priorities quite sparingly when I've been playing campaigns, and I think I will continue to do so. Anyway, so yeah, let's get at least to 1891, and I can say I've done the first year of my campaign. Again, we're losing relations with the French. And I wonder if that is purely because we are building up. Britain is building loads and refitting loads. Everyone else is being relatively modest. Finances are actually pretty okay. I might even bump my tech budget up a little more. We're still doing all right there. If you can hear something in the background, that is a cat who's decided now is a good time to play with a jingly ball. Are you having fun there, Samuel? Yeah, I think it must be. I think it must be the building of new ships that affects relations. So I guess it's a kind of balancing act. Is if you can space things out over time, it's going to have less of a sharp impact. But like the bigger you build your fleets, I suppose it's a kind of fairly reasonable way of simulating the sort of arms race tensions that did exist in this period, particularly in the run up to World War One, where international relations were affected by various navies trying to or various nations competing navally, building up fleets. So yeah, so you can have a small fleet, or whatever your starting fleet is, you just keep that and never really expand it and enjoy good relations with everybody. But if it does then come to a war at some point, you're going to be potentially woefully underprepared. So yeah, that's okay. That's kind of an interesting mechanic. It sort of forces you to choose a bit, and even if you do pace yourself, you are going to still be on a downward trajectory. I guess it's a stronger effect with your neighbours, but for some reason Austria-Hungary isn't too bothered. It's France that's particularly bothered. Anyway, government is worried about the growing international tension, military confrontation with... Oh, okay. So we can edge closer to war with France. I don't know why particularly France and not Austria-Hungary, but maybe the starting relations had something to do with it. We can decrease relations with France. It'd be nice if I could... Oof, no, we don't want to do that. Hello, Samuel. Let's go for that. Let's see if France will be our first opponent. But of course, France does have battleships. But I think we seem to have more stuff around there. It's kind of hard to tell. Oh no, okay, so they do have actually some fairly big fleets prowling around the Western Med. Of course, that's costing them money. And we don't really... I should probably consolidate some of these, because they're a little bit spread out at the moment, so... let's move the Messina fleets to Palermo. And move those ships to Taranto. You almost have... I don't know why you have... I guess it gives you this many ports. So just that you have the capacity, just because you can't build up port capacity. Like that does not exist as a thing within the game. But the more isolated ones, I guess you would want to have some ships in, just because if they get threatened in wartime and there aren't any bases nearby, like Gaeta, Naples, Livorno, and La Spezia, for instance. You know, you would think you could have all of your fleets just in one place, and surely they could protect the other port. But I don't know if the game actually does work like that. We can also see events that pop up for other nations, actually. I presume if you take historical, that they will tend to, like, relations will tend to go a certain way in a sort of almost prescripted path. In terms of, like, the choices that the nations are making, of whether to be friendly versus unfriendly versus certain other nations. But I guess I've just, like, if I've randomized it, then yeah. Interesting. Okay, so did I actually get the benefit of that? So that was a pop-up of, like, I didn't have any end of that, but I had, they had that same pop-up that I had from France. And I guess, is that giving me the funds then? It's actually a bit funny because, you know, apparently we have the most tension with France at the moment. We're at -16, which is not that much compared to some of the other nations. But, hello, Samuel. But, yeah, you know, I did give them a big chunk of money. So, yeah, I don't know. In terms of naval funds, we're actually not doing too badly. We're doing better than France. Yeah, I don't know. But if they have more capital ships and they're kind of sailing them all over the place unnecessarily, I guess we'll see. So, yeah, continuing to... I kind of wish I hadn't given that money to France now. Our relations are continuing to sink. Okay, a foreign journalist approached you asking about a high-ranking person from the British Empire's Admiralty. So, prestige, completely neutral, or I can actually sacrifice a bit of my own prestige for relations. Wow, hello. Are you starving to death? Poor boy. It's either that, or he is commenting on my naval policy. Because, as we all know, Sam is really the admiral in charge. I'm just his... what would it be? In the army, it would be an aide-de-camp, but what's the equivalent for the navy? Is it an attaché, or... I don't know. No, I think an attaché would be something different. Anyway, Samuel, that's my microphone. I think we'll just go with the neutral effect. Ooh, right. That... I don't know if that's good. If this... It'd be nice if it would specifically tell you this only affects new ships, because there's stuff like, you know, armor weight, which very clearly only affects new ships, new build ships after the tech. But I don't know if stuff like this does. And I also don't know if it works, like, if you refit after certain technologies, does that then give the benefit of those technologies? Still a couple of things that I am unclear about. Anyway, we'll tick over into January 1891. And again, relations with France are worsening. So it looks like our first fight will be with France, quite probably. Because that is just steadily sinking down. And it's not like I've even queued up a bunch more ships. But, yeah. For some reason, France is taking it personally. Samuel, get down. Now, that's the mouse cursor. That's not for you to bat at the screen. That's for me to do things with on the computer. This is not for your benefit, Samuel. Right, let's refit another couple. We might want to go for... Do we want to do more battleships? In terms of capital ships, France definitely heavily outweighs us. I mean, in this reality, apparently it was Italy that went for the Je ne Cole strategy of not having capital ships. What was I looking for? Oh yeah, fleet. So how much extra? Another 2 months. I think we will queue up another pair of those. And it's expensive, but we do have the cash. So, yeah, I've been recording for a while. I will be able to edit a few bits out, but I've been recording for approximately an hour and a half, and there's really not been much action. But that's going to be the nature of these long campaigns now, as I was saying earlier. So, yeah, hopefully people will find this interesting. I don't know. I guess we'll see. We'll see what the YouTube numbers say. If you have, though, comments, likes, all that stuff, always appreciated. And of course, well, as always, stay tuned for more.